So this is our four story episode. This story I figured would really intrigue you, just because the whole AI discussion. I think we've had it on different occasions, very loosely and stuff like that. But you really do good with like the VR news and like the Dungeons and Dragons things. Like I was really impressed with those news and everything, because I feel like those, of course, they really wouldn't come my way, and when, a lot of it I just don't understand. I really like. There's a lot of stuff with VR, like you'll say things, and that's when I feel like old fuck, because I'm like, what the fuck is this and this and that. Even though I know just a good amount of it, and but I think this one has to do with generative AI, which you know what that means, assuming. And for those that don't know, things like ChatGPT, DALL E, basically what every artist is upset about, that it's mimicking their art or this and that, or it's gonna lower the standard for other artists and stuff like that. So even before we begin, what do you think about generative AI in both the text to image and ChatGPT, the text to text or response engine?
Well, I mean, I'll just start off with ChatGPT because that's just the first thing that comes to mind is I've told you about this channel before, MKBHD. He's one of the like top YouTube channels out there. But he had a video about it where he actually kind of exposed ChatGPT for not being as accurate as like people thought it to be. And just kind of said in his video that like while it's a good resource, it shouldn't be a reliant. Like you shouldn't rely on this.
It's just like Google, and like to an extent, like you have to, if you're gonna try to find information, you should find it accurately. With
I mean, even to that, because like Google will give you better responses than ChatGPT is giving you.
Okay,
like it's more so when you, I'll say it's more so when you try to get into the specifics of things that ChatGPT will start like just creating answers for you. So when you're trying to get, basically what he was saying is that if you know the topic, don't ask ChatGPT because it's going to tell you stuff that is inaccurate or stuff that you already know. It's very low level, essentially.
For me, that's very reminiscent of, for some reason I want to say Google, but I really think of like Siri and stuff, or like Alexa. And I feel like even now when you ask Alexa some things, like it just tells you, I don't know, but just a bit like, but you may want to hear this article about it, And I think you're right. And honestly, this article was real amazing. I was on Time Magazine, and I think it really breaks down that and a whole bunch more. And it opened my eyes to how to look at AI.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also just say that
go ahead.
That like with sort of ChatGPT and stuff, like knowing what you know, it's never gonna give you what you want, or what you need, especially if you're like doing something that is time sensitive or you're working on a project. So again, it's just something you shouldn't rely on. But it's funny that you mentioned about the Google Assistant and Siri and stuff like that, because MKBHD also did a video where he basically battled all those assistants against each other. And the winner was the Google Assistant, where it was able to be more conversational, get more answers correct, be able to answer more things in a streak and things like that.
That's very interesting you bring that up. And that's very, you'll see why when I mention it later. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and so like it's just interesting to think of that. But even when it comes to sort of like DALL-E and things like that and all this art AI, I'll just say, like, I definitely have my gripes as an artist.
Yeah.
As an artist, any artist is gonna have their gripes with AI.
Oh, I'm so great. Oh,
but
I'm so special.
But
I'm kidding. Of course you are. Any artist that's is special, but it's just funny. It's fun to poke fun at that shit too. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll just say, for anyone who's using like AI images as like their profile picture, go touch grass. Like,
I'm gonna do it right.
I'm gonna do it right. Everybody listen to that shit right now. Go to Hobby touch grass.
You can literally ask any talented artist to do that for you.
Yeah, and a lot more untalented artists.
You can ask anyone to do it for you. Like, fucking it. That just annoys me. But I have like seen that even for sort of this art AI, that it could be used as a sort of resource for artists that are struggling with certain concepts or are trying, or just like drawing a blank. Yeah. And then when it comes to that, I don't really have a problem with it, because it's like, if I can't imagine something in my head, like, I'll type it up and see what this spits out at me, and so that way I have reference, because many artists draw from reference.
Well,
it's not unheard of.
I think anything that an artist draws, and I won't say this is a complete accurate statement. I think anything an artist draws, creates, sculpts, anything like that, I think it's in reference to things that they've seen, but it's also, how can I say, an outcome of all their past experiences, which and I think the past experiences is what makes it the most unique, because the AI is the same way. You know what I mean? Obviously, not with human experiences and this and that. But when you mentioned the first thing about the guy competing all the AIs together and see which one is the best one, the thing is about AI, and I'll repeat this later on, is that every time it's used, it's gaining more knowledge to make it better. Mm-hmm. So like within that process, he's only bettering AI. Yeah. And like we're in such early stages of it with like the public availability that it's only going to get better. Like every time you use it, it's going to be better than the last one, like just realistically, and the millions of users. And so I think when it comes to like creating images, as long as it's not stealing art, which is kind of hard to do when you're kind of merging everything together, it's very interesting. And I still don't know how I feel about the art thing. I will say that the art thing is very hard to really.
I'm not gonna say that like I still don't really know how to feel about it because like I just said, in when it comes to the idea of like people just using it to just take pictures and post it on Instagram, it's like you could get an artist to do that for you.
Yeah, but you also like. But why would you do that when you can use the AI like to post? Because it's, I mean. Well, let me not say that, but it's just like it's a fun little thing to do to like make an AI version of yourself. It's like a different form. Like you can get an artist to take a picture of you for sure. You could take a selfie of yourself, but it's just like it's a unique form to make a way you'd look exist.
Yeah, but artists can do that. You don't need the AI to do that, which is just.
But you don't need an artist to do either by that logic.
No, you don't. But it's just like you can just bring up the argument of like supporting your local artists and things like that, and so it's like
I think that's a completely optional thing to do. I think when you
it is optional,
because artists should do it for free if they're doing it for passion.
I mean, I'll do it for free. That like Frankie,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding completely. I'm kidding completely because I know it's a sensitive subject for artists. Realistically, too, I'm not even trying to like just to play devil advocate or whatever. I just say it in the sense of. I think it's like, remember we had the conversation about, it's funny that Brian's here because he was here for that conversation with the white person cooking Mexican food and being the Mexican chef. So it's like your logic was like if a lot of people are putting down the white chef for cooking Mexican food, that you would just say, well, if that was me, I would just be better. Like, isn't that logic here? Able to be instilled that like as an artist, you should just be better.
Without a doubt. But that's also why I don't have a super strong stance about the topic.
But in general, to all artists, right? Like, isn't this their moment to step it up? Because I mean, in general, art is such a competitive area in terms of like making a living, like not to be like rich, but to just make it a living where you can do it comfortably at your own pace, in your own style, and exist being an artist. I think. With the AI and everything,
there are more broke artists and there are rich artists
for sure. But I mean that's just the reality of the world because there are a lot of rich shitty artists and a lot more talented, not relevant people. And that's not because the art is bad. That's just because the selectivity of people and wealth and like how they interpret art is just very, very
different. It's just different.
Not different, but just selective. I guess I know I used selective twice. It's just. I think there's a lot of romanticization as opposed to real hard work, grit, grind, and opportunity. You know what I mean? There's so much artists because I think everybody can be an artist. Like not everybody can be an accountant. Not everybody can be a president. Everybody can be an artist. Like because when you draw,
it's like gender identity. Just identify as an artist.
Go touch your fucking grass, Harvey. No. I think it's and again I myself and I would say this, like even doing this podcast, like you can be an artist in that way. You can be an artist in many ways. You know what I mean? When I wake up with my hard dick in the morning, like I'm an artist.
You're like, wow, what a piece of art.
I'm just gonna keep mentioning it because it's the most personal thing I've put on the podcast, which is hilarious. But I think
I can talk about my dick too if you want me to.
But we want to talk about dicks.
if you don't want to feel alone, like
nah, fuck your dick, bro.
I mean, say less.
But I turned this AI on. All right, but ultimately, when I was reading the article, I thought it was going in the direction of this conversation, like speaking about how it's gonna diminish the modern artist and this and that. But this is a lot more interesting because it real gets into the depth of AI, its impact, and the future it's coming about, and the real in depths of the companies overseeing it. But honestly speaking, reading this article, and I'll start right now. It gave me a better understanding and a balanced view of how artists and AI should feel like together, coexisting and stuff.
I mean, before you do get
into it,
I'll
say what you gotta say.
I'll just finish off with just like my sort of stance is just that I don't have a strong stance on it. I genuinely don't. Like, while I might say that I don't really like that people use these AI images on like Instagram and things like that and whatever, I understand it's fun to do that, but to like, I guess, to show it off and be like, oh, look at this, look at me, but this way and this and that, just rubs me the wrong way. But I understand, like, like I mentioned before, in the same regard, artists who could use it to create reference, to draw from reference, who are drawing blanks on certain things, who can't literally imagine certain things. So
wouldn't that be plagiarism though? If you use AI to show you something and then you want to base something off that, isn't that just plagiarism to the AI? Or like,
well, that's just drawing from reference, and many like talented artists, like even for the AMC section.
But the comics you said, right? Like they'll see a picture of a person and they'll draw them in that form and everything. Which comic was that?
Well, that's just almost all
just in general. But there are certain artists that use that method, right?
Yeah. So it's like at that point, are you going to say that they're just copying other pieces? Like, yeah,
not really.
Say that, but it's just at the end of the day, it's just the term of it is that they're drawing from reference. And so like to use AI to create reference, I can understand. I can totally completely understand that. So that's why I don't have a set stance on it, because I'm just kind of like, I can see the benefits, but I could also see the disadvantages of AI coming into the art space.
Okay. All right, cool. I really want to continue that conversation, but I want to do more research. Especially because I really think it's a very much what's the word? It incites a lot of emotion in artists, and I very much like to bring a conversation that does that, because I think when you're emotional, you're more passionate, and when you're passionate, you're more truthful. And sometimes you just say what you think rather than
just say something wild, racist.
Nazis, man. I mean, can't we just be them?
AI is like fucking Hitler, man.
Correct. And that's actually another point I'm making here. So let me start because I think this is such a great article. Okay, and cut me off whenever you want because I think this is great. You too, Brian, if you want to say some shit. So AI today is being used to prepare tax returns, debugging code, providing health advice, and sketching architectural blueprints. They also assemble cars, respond to emails, and price medicine in houses. Quote, chatbots like GPT are powered by large amounts of data and computing techniques to make predictions to string words together in a meaningful way. They not only tap into a vast amount of vocabulary and information, but also understand words in context. This helps them mimic speech patterns while dispatching an encyclopedic knowledge. That's Insider Magazine. Okay. DALL E and DALL E 2, spelled DALL-E and DALL-E2, are deep learning models developed by OpenAI to generate digital images from natural language descriptions called prompts, basically text to image. So you can write like Harry Styles on a banana floating through Mars, and it'll come up with all the sources from the internet to give you the most accurate depiction in many different ways. And I think we talked about it like a while back before it really got huge. I would shout to Red Band because that's where I learned it from. And when I saw it happening in real time, I was baffled. I think I showed you the video.
Covered that as well when it first came out.
It's real amazing stuff. And regardless of anything, it is very amazing. I think so. Like for the technology to be that advanced right now, especially with this AI voice stuff, like people making Biden, voices and stuff like that.
Even with like the
anybody,
the Nixon speech that I showed last episode.
Exactly, man. So stuff like that is real impressive. All right. So in January, ChatGPT reached 100 million month user rates, a faster rate of adoption than Instagram and TikTok. Certain forecasters predict that the global economy can generate $15 trillion by 2030 due to AI, which is crazy.
Damn.
There's a lot of money. Let me get $1. Companies like Google and Microsoft are within their own race to generate the better AI. And this whole concept, I look at it as like the race to the moon from Russia and the US and stuff like that. Google presented its developed AI on Twitter called Bard, which is described as a launchpad for curiosity, quote, a launchpad for curiosity, end quote, and search tool to, quote, help simplify complex topics. So have you heard of Bard?
I haven't.
So you mentioned Google Assistant earlier, right? So for me, I wasn't going to do this topic to begin with because I read some other article, boring as fuck. But it talked about Google Assistant, and it's not the strongest. I mean, the MK, what's the name I say?
MKBHD.
Yeah, from what they say, from if he says it's the best one, but from what I've read, Google Assistant is not at all like close to being the best one today. You know,
Okay.
From what I've read. But it's funny that you mentioned that Google Assistant won this because so an ad shown by Google and accompanied by a GIF was a question to Bard. The question and Bard is from Google, from its parent company Alphabet, right? So Google is owned by Alphabet, and this is all coming down to Bard, which is a generative AI through Google, to be really descriptive. The ad was by Google and accompanied by a GIF with a question to Bard. The question was, quote, "What new discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope can I tell my 9-year-old about?" End quote. Bard, a chatbot, responded with bullet points, with one being that the James Webb Space Telescope was the first to take pictures of planets outside the Earth's solar system, which are exoplanets. This particular bullet point was incorrect because the James Webb Telescope wasn't the first to see exoplanets. In fact, the European Southern Observatory's telescope was actually the first to accomplish this in 2004.
Okay.
The reason I bring this up is that because of this one mistake, Google's parent company Alphabet lost $100 billion in market value.
Oof.
That's a lot of fucking money for getting one thing wrong.
Yeah.
And I asked my friend June at work, shout out to June, I was like, why do you think they lost so much money off like this one answer being incorrect? And he was like, you don't understand how many people are relying on AI technology today. And I'm referencing right now everything I just said in the beginning, the price of medicine, the houses, the architecture, everything, right? $100 billion was lost because this AI got one question wrong about a telescope. It's crazy to me.
Yeah,
$100 billion.
It's like MKBHD said in his video. Like what I mentioned is that you shouldn't be reliant on these AIs.
Yeah, but then I get more into it later on. I think that's like hold that thought, right? So their shares momentarily lowered by 9%, and Microsoft shares rose by 3%. Microsoft has invested $10 billion into OpenAI, OpenAI is the startup engine that created ChatGPT and DALL-E. Those two when I mentioned earlier. Microsoft hopes to include the generative AI into its search engine Bing and Office software. Some believe that generative AI could be as huge as when the first iPhone was announced, or I think Microsoft Office, one of those. You know, but the iPhone was the best reference for I think people that are listening now. Although generative AI has been in the works for quite some time, a huge concern has been its potential to involve hate speech, misinformation, and more within that nature while it's being used. This Tay chatbot was released by Microsoft in 2016, but
I've mentioned that on the show before.
It became Holocaust denying, so they shut it down. And it took less than 24 hours for it to tweet, "Hitler was right, I hate the Jews, and that feminists should all die and burn in hell."
Yeah.
That's crazy. AI today works through a neural network, which is a computing paradigm based off the human brain. See, these are things I didn't know. So I'm gonna repeat that again. This is why I really very much like this article, because it helps me understand what AI is in a much more like drained way where I can really understand. So AI today works through a neural network, which is a computing paradigm based off the human brain. The way neural networks work is by consistently teaching themselves to spot patterns within data. Therefore, they're able to function much more when fed data and computing power. Before DALL-E was made widely available, OpenAI only released it to a group of trusted users in order to, quote, understand and address the biases that DALL-E has inherited from its training data. Another company, so basically they were like, let's hold off. Let's hold off for a bit. Let's let the people that aren't going to put in like swastikas and shit in the, the text to image shit. And let's trust a couple people to use our stuff for now. And people were aggravated. They were like, we want to use this AI already, right? So another company was like, fuck it. It was called Stability AI is the company, and they released Stable Diffusion, which is a text-to-image generative AI. And unlike DALL-E and similar companies, that was available to everyone immediately. And it was believed that this would be a move that would help other companies develop their own AI through collected information from Stable Diffusion. Basically saying that the more people that use this will help other companies develop their AI, because the main basis of everything is that the more you use the AI and the more the world uses the AI, the better it's going to be. That's the main point of everything, right? AI will go on to be used to form blueprints for architects, AI-based script for colors, and develop quizzes and articles for publications, and even won an art competition. Somebody used AI to win an art competition, which I thought was pretty impressive. With AI's popularity rising, companies like Microsoft, Google, and more are rushing to release, and one take on it mentioned that it's quote prioritizing speed over safety. It's from Time Magazine. Deep fakes are also a huge concern with AI, and you want to explain what deep fakes are?
It's just recreating someone's face or voice
In any
and
scenario.
or voice.
It could be like a violent scenario, it could be in a sexual scenario, it could be in like political or this and that.
Yeah,
and,
just recreating their face and voice to
and
just
very
do
realistic.
whatever you want.
Yeah. And a vital example was one of Joe Biden talking shit about transgender people. That was a very viral one that went around. That he was like, they mimicked the voice and the face and everything, and it sounded like he was talking bad about transgenders.
I didn't see that.
Crazy stuff. Lawsuits are also arising from the AI using artists' work without their permission. And this is something that I read that I'm interpreting. So a concern I read about and I'm interpreting because I was a little confused was that news outlets will have difficulty competing with AI that spews news. Basically one mega AI that would gather all the info from the media and display it to whoever visit or uses that AI. So my thought is that I'm assuming they're saying that news outlets will have a problem with AI because the AI will be the one source collecting all the news and putting it into one like tunnel. Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so I interpreted it good. Big companies that release this generative AI for free do it at a cost, but with long-term benefit. OpenAI is able to bear the cost of every chat occurring due to Microsoft's financial investment in them. So, like Instagram and other things, this ChatGPT and all this stuff, they're able to function more for free because Microsoft is investing, companies are investing. That's their scheme for a lot of other things, And if smaller companies attempt to do this, like to mimic the strategy, they will lose money drastically in comparison with a difficult point of recovery. So they're not able to afford it like ChatGPT can because they have investors. This AI being free allows usage to skyrocket, and with the consumer base dependent on few options of generative AI. But this month, OpenAI brought in a $20 a month charge, but for a subscription tier of chatbot. So now you can pay for like a higher up tier to use chatbot.
Yeah,
I know DALL-E, it was free initially, but you can only use like $15 worth of like you could use it, but you can only make a certain amount of searches every like day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like it limited a good amount. The irony is that with large dependency on AI from information by the people, will blur what is actual misinformation or advertisements in the future in regards to any information. The explicit goal.
I'll just say like,
go ahead.
This just kind of almost sounds like early days of the internet of like, well, just not even early days, but just I guess in general the internet is just like.
No, but the internet, I think, was so revolutionary in how it changed everything.
No, of course. I backtracked on that idea just because I was thinking of like, in the early days, like we all kind of dealt with that misinformation of like the fact that people could change whatever they wanted on Wikipedia and things like that. And people just would accept whatever they saw on the internet, like back in the day. But then, what? And that's why I backtrack on it because even today people still are like that, especially older people.
Yeah, like the lady you said who couldn't figure out her shit and everything.
Yeah, like older people are like, I've seen like the meme and stuff of like how parents used to tell us to not trust everything we see on the internet, but now I'm telling my parent the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like that is entirely true.
I look at the internet like when they invented the wheel, and I look at AI as if when they invented the car. You get me?
Okay.
Like it's a more enhanced version of but the wheel changed everything. Ideologically speaking, like to transfer things and stuff like that. But the internet, you literally went from being a caveman to like access to the world, like to email somebody in fucking Siberia, And so
shout out to Siberia.
Shout out to my Siberians and Turkey. Rest in peace, a lot of people. This was a quote from the book, and I think I want your take on this. Quote, the explicit goal of many of these AI companies, including OpenAI, is to create an artificial general intelligence, or AGI, that can think and learn more efficiently than humans. If future AIs gain the ability to rapidly improve themselves without human guidance or intervention, they could potentially wipe out humanity. An off-sided thought experiment is that of an AI that, following a command to maximize the number of paper clips it can produce, makes itself into a world-dominating super intelligence that harvests all the carbon at its disposal, including from a life on Earth. In a 2022 survey of AI researchers, nearly half of the respondents said that there was a 10% of greater chance that AI could lead to such a catastrophe. So basically, I know that was a little jumbled up and whatever.
Okay.
Basically saying AI can fucking dominate the world if it's able to. And I really realized how true that was. But then when you look at the basis of how much is going to be used, how much is going to be involved from like learning from us, and this next point, actually no, let me just say the next points and then we'll continue. To avoid this quote world domination, some techs are developing AIs to grow with human value within it. So they want to basically raise the AI, but with the association of human value along its
nature
frequency.
Nurture.
Yeah, but only 80 to 120 researchers are developing AI with this in mind. Because there is such a race to develop the best generative AI, others may not have this human value aspect prioritized. So only 80 to 120 people are basically like iRobot type shit, like trying to make a robot be like an iRobot. For those who haven't seen the movie, like think like a human, I think therefore I am type shit. But other ones just wanted to advance no matter what. And so what's the other side of the 80 to the 120 that don't give a fuck how it generates as long as they can make money? My last 2 points is that
that definitely connects a lot to not even iRobot, but Blade Runner.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it just all those dystopian, but yeah, definitely Blade Runner with everything else. A big fear of AI's success and implementation to society is how it may turn big tech into the capital empire through its widespread usage and financial gain. And lastly, the leaders of OpenAI and DeepMind have hinted that they'd like the wealth and power emanating from AI to somehow be redistributed, right? The big tech executives who control the purse strings, on the other hand, are primarily accountable to their shareholders. So it's like every company, like, no, we want to give back to the community, but like, really, what are you going to do with that money and stuff? So that's pretty much the whole AI. And my whole thing when it comes down to not being reliant on it, it's like, I get that, and you shouldn't be right now. But when it starts getting like much more advanced, like it may be a valuable source to rely on because it's learned so much from your mistakes. Like it's inevitably gonna get things that were wrong and correct because it's gonna learn from those things. And with it being used in so many different areas, right now it may not be good, but 5 years from now and 10 years from now, like you put a kid in college for 12 years is gonna learn something. You put an AI with constant algorithmic, adaptations to everything. It has to get more things correct than it did previously, especially if we're angling it that way.
Yeah, I mean, logically, it makes sense.
Yeah,
logically, that's like, that's how it should go.
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, that's how it's going. Like, that's it's not like hypothetical within this scenario. Like it's truthful and actual.
It with most things that this seems pretty natural.
Yeah.
It's just of the growth of it, and
that's the scariest thing, how natural it is for something that's so artificial.
And that's where a lot of this conversation comes into play of just even questioning, don't rely on it now, but rely on it later. It's like when does that line blur of how much do we rely on technology as human beings? Because
I mean, we already do completely. Like, look at this scenario we're in. We're headphones in our ears,
exactly,
microphones, laptop, phones.
It's just I only bring that up because for some people they don't want to give that up.
Absolutely.
And so I just think that's so interesting. It's just like AI is such a brand new technology in a world that is still developing.
We're always developing, though. We're never not developing.
Yeah, and it makes me so curious of just like the people that are more tech illiterate. How do they feel about AI? Do they even understand how it works?
I think people who are younger than us will understand it way more. I know you're very tech savvy, and I don't consider myself that tech savvy, even though I am more than like people who are older than me. But when I look at like younger people, like they're incredibly tech savvy because they've been using technology from literally the moment they can experience the world. And I think that's real interesting. And eventually it'll become second nature. And like with coding and stuff like that, like there's a program that I didn't write down. I didn't understand it, but it can like translate speech to coding, and it's crazy.
Really?
That's
Holy
fucking
shit.
crazy, man. So like little things like that, I'm like baffled.
That almost makes me think of again that scene in Blade Runner when he's like controlling the camera thing.
He's like go
2,
to
4,
this,
6, 7
and
enhance.
That's
it's
a good
like those voice commands and shit like that. Yeah, that could happen. It's like no, that AI go crazy.
What do you think, Brian? What do you think about it?
AI go burr.
At the beginning, like when you were talking about how even like art to like AI or like how you're talking about artists, Well, it was funny because I remember like back when I was bartending, I was meeting a lot of people that were just starting to get into like photography, right?
Okay.
And then the big thing came out with like filters,
Mm-hmm.
with the camera and Instagram and stuff like that. And photographers be like, yo, I spent 4 years in college to learn like the mechanics of a camera, and now your iPhone or Samsung could do all of that, and then with the filter too now. And it's crazy because it's like normally now we can't even tell if it was done by a camera, like a specialized camera, like a camera like a Canon or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
or someone's iPhone or Samsung. Like it's just ridiculous. Like I like for example, like my background picture is like of like the moon of the red, but it's because I could zoom in like 15 times.
Mm-hmm.
Android did have some trickery with the moon taking photos because they definitely enhanced it, right? There are some features in Android that I'm not knocking it down, but even that's proving your point that the moon photos that they advertise, it would attribute its own effects to enhance the moon's how it looks.
So what it is basically that it scans the whatever picture or whatever image it shows on your screen, and it enhances it to be like, okay, well, this is how it looked like without blurriness and stuff. Like I have it on my phone too. Like I have pictures of the moon myself, and I'm so shocked. Like, yo, I can't believe I could zoom in. Like back then when I was younger, and I guess it goes to the possibilities of like your age and stuff like because you've seen technology grow, right? But I was just remember talking to this guy like, yo, I spent 4 years in college, like be a photographer and stuff like that, and it's like, well, if I was just born like maybe like 6 years later, I wouldn't have to do it if I still had to say. But it also comes down to passion now. Like, what do you want to do? Like
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment where one time where we Lucas, Frankie, and I got into a conversation
Yeah.
about that with photography because Lucas's camera that he was using was a black and white camera,
Yeah.
and Lucas was showing Frankie all the photos that he took, and Frankie was like, "Yeah, but like you can just do this on an iPhone,"
Right.
and I was just like, we were just trying to get the point across of like, yeah, you can do this on an iPhone, but to do it on a camera isn't just a simple point and shoot.
Yeah.
To get those results on a camera is more
course.
work.
And then again, like, and that's why you explain passion and like how some people would do it for free, but then you think about it, it's like people want to make a career out of this.
Yeah.
And, like you have to make money and survive. Like like this guy was like, yo, it's crazy because like, I mean, realistically, I went to school for this. I'm paying off this debt, and like I figured my pictures would pay that off. But now, like, I don't even have to spend so much. Well, it kind of was like a little blessed because like at least I don't have to spend so much on the camera because I can have it on the palm of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's also like kind of sucks the fun out of it. Like it was almost like it was going down his own demise. Be like, well, damn, like it's not funny though because and I get it, but then I get that's his dilemma. Other people could view it very differently. It's all perspective, like how you said. But it comes down to like, is that gonna make him money or not?
Yeah.
And it's the way he's making the money because
it also just comes down to the person
Like,
of
that's what I'm saying,
like
like, it's all
of how much money
perspective.
of like if you even care about money and things like that.
And same thing. There was another guy who would make he did music, and so he made beats.
Okay.
So like in order to like get recognition, he would just sell his his rights for like $5 to like apps that needed like beats or like background music.
Uh-huh.
And obviously let's say you're playing like I don't know like a Temple Run or something like that. Like that music was probably bought off like some person for dirt cheap, right? Or better yet, now for the point across for AI, like a company could literally just be like, oh, I want this type of music to be like, oh, okay, I want like, oh, mellow, I want scary, I want to fit this app, and all the company has to do is just
What happens when AI makes music? Like, what happens when they make a best-selling album? Because then like you actually will enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, say like a Michael Jackson type album or something, and like not on the same sound, but like if you like it, music is one of those things where like you can't resist it. So what if it makes like 12 straight hits and what if AI makes the best-selling album in the world?
I mean, it's crazy because like all the AI has to do is just integrate the top selling albums of what certain decades and be like, oh well, this is the best album now for this decade because it's like
People like this. So let's do this.
and it's like another thing that like really caught my attention was also like when he was doing text to speech, right?
Uh-huh.
So there are programs now that like you could write out an essay where or let's say doing an essay for school, you don't have to type it up. You could just say it. I think there's a program for that where you could just say it, and it'll just change the words to be more like sophisticated or to change.
Yeah, like Grammarly is one of them. Yeah.
And now, but like imagine saying it, and it just switches up the words so it sounds more like it sounds smarter or sounds more again like you'd be like, oh wow, this guy's very intellectual.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll just say even to that, like as an English major, like that stuff kind of also bothers me.
No, of course, 100%. And I would agree too, because now like for me, like my grammar and punctuation horrible, but if I had that program, I'd probably be like, oh shit, I wish I had that, when I was younger, But then again, I probably wouldn't learn, or maybe I would, like if I had to reread over it.
Yeah, because that's just my argument about that with like the Grammarly stuff and things like that. Those sorts of apps of just like you're just letting someone do it for you, where it's like you're not even learning, you're just giving up. Like, okay, you do it for me.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's the thing too. Like now, even when you have to write down essays, for example, like or maybe you have to make a debate, like, or you have to do a cause and effect article or a paragraph, or you have to find the perfect thesis to start every paragraph. Like you could literally put it in AI and it'll give you like, oh, maybe you should start your sentence like this. And it's crazy because like that's when it's always like no kids are actual learning. Kids are gonna be dumb in a sense because they understand that the AI could do it for them.
Yeah,
which causes like again, I see it in like today's kids too. Like now, like the math too. Like it won't be top of the head. They could literally just ask their phone, like, "Hey Google, what's?" And I'll be like,
there are definitely apps that like you can just take pictures of math equations and it'll just solve it for you.
That type of AI is crazy because it's like, because it's like not only just our art, it's like the way kids are learning. Like that's gonna like, they'll be tech savvy, but how much would they know? Like most kids won't even know how to tell time. Through analog, yeah. Like,
what if in the future when like all this advanced technology is able to be used by children, like not through phones, like through phones I think is a more prehistoric way in terms of the future of how we're gonna do like math through the technology. But what if like they're able to access that information, that ability, let's just say, to do math real fast? Like it's not that it would be unnecessary to learn math, but it would be like the camera thing you said, like, with the whole black and white. Yeah, you can cherish, learning how to do a formula and stuff like that. But if you're able to just do it fast, the whole point isn't to diminish the craft and the art form. It really is to make it more accessible to everyone, and like, yeah, you can say like, oh, who cares about like the Pythagorean theorem? But then it's like, but then people can do their own taxes. People can do like finance themselves better. Like you won't need financial advisors, or, like you'll have the app to do that, or like the AI to do that. So like, would it make the world better if it diminishes? I mean, it'll probably make intelligence less, but if you have technology, you have all the intelligence, which I know is like a little dystopic to say, but like, think about that. What do you think?
I mean, even now, like accountants, for example, we have our accountants, but like, again, we could go to Credit Karma, take pictures of our tax reform, and they'll do it for us. But in the future, it would be no, and definitely so. And it's like, what scares me, it's like that I'm not against this, that like, what are going to be the jobs that we do? How are we as a society gonna, like, because I've seen already videos of like the IHOP that has that robotic waiter that goes around.
Yeah,
I've seen the robotic bartender. It's like where it's like they make the drinks right then and there. Now for bartending, I don't know. I think there's a that one. I feel human connection is like that shit that really counts. But accounting, again, like you could take a picture of your tax returns or tax forms, and it'll just do it for you.
Yeah.
And so accounting, like H&R Block, like at the end of the day, you're not gonna need people anymore. You're just gonna need a picture, like literally, like something. And then even to then, like imagine the AI goes like, whoa, like you're missing a tax form, or like, hey, like maybe to get more tax return, you should do this. Now it's giving you more suggestions because it's getting more advanced. And now, like I remember, there's, again, and for teaching wise, there's two types of teachers. One that teaches through computers, and one that actually tries to make a human connection. And I remember my teacher would just literally go on a website, and he would literally click, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is how you learn. This is how you do trigonometry." And I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, if that's the case, I gotta just stay home. You get me? But there was another teacher like, "Oh yeah, let me tell you about Constant Napoleon, like because of this," and he made it into a story. Like that's this, but like it comes to the idea of like, are we gonna get less smart, or are we just gonna have all the information accessible? And it's like, well, would that make us smart? And I remember the whole argument would be like, well, you have to know how to like do the math, or like you have to know how to think
for
differently,
yourself.
or think differently, like the way you solve problems.
Critical thinking.
Exactly. But it's not, if we are going to think the same way, I mean, like, it's going to be a little insane, because it's like, now we're going to have that one idea, we're going to share that same idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, even to that, just that idea of like, I've always pushed for this, where I just feel like in education in general, schools should be teaching critical thinking more than anything.
Yeah.
Because while it's cool and all and whatever to learn this and that and shit you're never going to use, but it's just with critical thinking, if you teach someone how to think for themselves, they can go miles.
Yeah.
They can go miles.
100%.
With that.
Yeah.
And it's just, there in education today, we don't teach that. And with something on the rise like AI that can stunt that even more, is a very scary thing to think about.
But with that in mind, and what you said in mind, Brian, now, like, let's take the things that you can just Google within consideration, right? Math, history, right? Your core values, of course, being like English, speaking, putting together how to talk and stuff like that. Those things, no AI is gonna fix how you talk unless you're Stephen Hawking, ha ha ha. But when you consider what you're saying, critical thinking, if AI was able to overcome these, things that you'll never use in life, like, stats, if you're not going to be a statistician or this and that, if you're able to lessen these in like these subjects in school more, you can make more time for critical thinking. You can make more time for philosophy, for music, for art. And now, while in this time period, it'll make artists like struggle a little more. If AI is able to free up more time by letting you do things much easier through its technology, wouldn't artists have more time not being like baristas or like, cashiers or, like truck drivers, and have more time to work on themselves?
I mean, definitely. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Also,
but let me finish this thought.
Okay.
Today I was talking to Cameron, right? And he said, and it's crazy. He said that he was like, what do you? I complimented his comic books, and I was like, "Yeah, man, like, you're really good at them." He's like, "Yeah, I hope that one day I don't have to be doing this, and I could just work on my comics." And just to back to that point, like, wouldn't this, like, all these jobs being taken, at first it sounds real scary and dystopian, but in the future, in a real world where government isn't trash, wouldn't you have more time to work on? Wouldn't you have more time to work on what you actually want to do? Like, does that make a little sense? Say what you were gonna say.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that, like, that sounds nice and all, but that definitely sounds like something that would come down more to a systemic value.
Yeah,
like it would have to really, like, we would have to change things at a systemic value for as a society to maneuver like that. And so it's just, I wish we could do that. I wish we could just, like, sort of use AI to lessen the things that are not as important to us. But it's just, you never know what's gonna click for someone.
I think it comes down to that, like what you said. Like, I think it just comes down to, like, the culture, society. I don't know. It's just like, again, I always keep this thing in mind. This comment, I remember, it was like a Reddit post, and it was like saying, "What does America? How do people outside of America feel about Americans?" And
like,
I
think I saw
and
this.
And it's like, oh yeah, people. The way America looks at Florida is the way, like,
we all look at the rest of.
And then it was like very interesting, because they were like, oh yeah, it's because, like, you guys think that the world revolves around you, and I do 100% think that. I think that we, as America as a whole, like, we do. Yeah. I really do think that we feel like it revolves around us. And then when you see other countries, the way they have used technology and stuff like that, definitely for the worse or for the better. I think it's just crazy. Like, if you look at, like, there's this, I was gonna mention, there's this YouTuber who calls back the scammers, the people that scam and ask you for, like, your social security, or, like, ask you, like, oh, please pay your car notice and bill right now, or else they're gonna, like, cut it off right now. And so what he does is he uses the technology that he has, the AI, to track their location, get their money, all the money that they scammed, and he takes it from them. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, I remember seeing a whole video of it, and I was like, what? And but then again, it's because, like, it was this Middle Eastern country that was, like, that was scamming, like, like, it was dead, like, it was just scamming. but he used the technology for good. He was just like, oh, like all the money that he took from the scammers, he donates it. Like he shows like, oh, like they had like $40,000 in their bank. I was able to wire it to my bank, and so I'm gonna like donate it to charity.
Okay.
And you get me? Like it was
Yeah,
like and this is all a YouTube like channel, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like it just came across it. They don't want like one of those.
You're like, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, literally. And then again, but then you see people using technology for good, and it's like, okay, like the way they're improving their transportation, you know, like again, like Japan, like the way they're. I remember you guys brought it up in the episode about the like anti-suicide barriers.
Oh yeah.
I mean Japan, yeah, and then Japan has been doing that already for like about 10 years now.
Yeah.
You know, probably maybe a little less or maybe more. But I mean, I remember when I went and like I saw the barriers just magnetically go up, and I was like, "What is this? This is like the technology is insane." So I do really think it like stems on how we are, and because America is so big, and you know, especially the South, the way their education is going or like their leadership is going, I think it really again it depends on like how we teach it and how we like understand as a society or community. Because I think New York, I think what really hurts us is like the way we fund technology. It's not that we don't like appreciate it, it's just the way we fund it. And places like the South, it's like they don't fund it at all, or they want to go back to like fucking like the 60s,
tablets,
yeah,
stone tablets,
yeah. And then like I know in California, it's like. Well, celebrities always fund back their schools, so they always get all the technologies too. You know, it's
very unequal.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And then you see private schools that get tablets to take home and stuff like that. You know, so I think it does depend on like a society sense, like how we act as a society culture. But I always think back, like again, like what countries are advanced and countries that like take the technology serious, like how are they teaching it? You know. So that's something, that really kind of like comes about, especially with laws too. Like that's why we have people like in Russia hacking us or whatever like that, because there's no like laws preventing them from doing it.
Shout out to Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
Also, Ukraine suffered a big. I want to talk about this in the future episode, but they're basically getting a lot of their information just wiped off because of like cyber hackers and stuff like that. And I think in 2016 as well, one of the most major like events of it happened. But now during this Ukraine-Russia thing, Russia is fucking with them so much, like in terms of malware or whatever that fucking means, like those things. And I think it's interesting. I remember when Jordan was here and we talked about it. It was when we started with Smash Mouth. I don't know if you remember that episode. We had a real good conversation about like how we are in America and how we are in different countries. And I just remember saying something along the lines of like, I wish I could remember it because it was, I think I made a good point. That it was just like, yeah, in America, we're very ethnocentric and we very much, think the world revolves around us. But in some extent, like, we're able to do what we can in this country because like we're able to do what we can because we don't have to worry about like war or like, this morning, and it's so kind of coincidental. This morning I was walking around and I was walking back to work actually. And I was like, I'm so happy I don't live in a, places that a war is affecting me personally because there's war happening around, like I don't have to worry about getting shot. You know what I mean?
But you get shit thrown on you by a homeless guy. So like,
facts. No, that's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah, we're not perfect society, but the fact that like you could play soccer and aspire to be a good soccer player. Like we can make this podcast and be aspire to have a good podcast. You can make comics and aspire to be a comic. Like we're able to do all these things. We're in different countries. You're not really allowed to do that. And like with Japan being so advanced and stuff like that, like they're also very flawed when you really think about like how misogynistic they are and how like it still is that tier of man. I mean, it's not that it's not existent here, but like there's people fighting constantly in America that are women, and a lot of women have taken great positions. The DA in New York City is a woman. You know what I mean? And I was reading that in an article in a local newspaper the other day, and not that makes up for everything, but I just think that America gets a bad rep by Americans. You know what I mean? And I think the funny thing about Americans is that we love to shit on ourselves. And like, you don't understand how much that is a freedom in itself. Like try doing that shit in Russia. Try doing that shit in China. You know what I mean? Like, that's such a privilege, to be able to do that. And it's a great one, to be able to like talk shit about your own government.
We're the best country
ever
because we can talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about, whenever the fuck we want to talk about.
Honestly, yeah, man.
And if we want to talk about Frankie's hard dick in the morning, we can do that. All right.
Dead ass. And North Korea too.
I mean, no, I was just saying to that, even that, I mean, like the countries that had that freedom of speech and stuff like that, I think we should all be applauded to have it. Like I think I do genuinely think like if you're allowed to speak on it, like you have your own opinion, I think that's very important. I think we're one of many countries that, well, not many countries, but certain few countries that allow it. And so to the certain few, like, yeah, we could do it. And it's like, I think we just, again, we have this rep and we give ourselves a rep. And then but again, like that ego is fine because of the things we have. Like, I think it's fine. But I just, again, like I said, like, depending on how we do things, so like depending on how we, like in terms of this technology, going back to technology, it's like depending on how we do it and depending on how we're teaching it, it's gonna that's gonna really be like the milestone for like the people that are like 10 years later, or even the kids now. Like, I mean, like we have someone that has a kid, and I always think like, damn, like, they're probably gonna learn something way different.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of like pull it back to AI, just like I think was just something that like I feel like could be recognized by most people is that right now in time with AI, it's a very malleable time.
Yeah.
Meaning that there are a lot of variants, a lot of variables going on right now. We don't really know what's gonna happen yet. All we can do is contemplate and talk about it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, that's again like that's what like. My head is always into like, oh, it's gonna be the Matrix, like AI is gonna take over the world, and we're gonna live as like batteries for like AI, or it could be like, we could have a very organized society where we could like literally use it in our favor. We don't fuck up, but that's also good for wishing and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's also a possibility too.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. All we know is that Frank is gonna wake up tomorrow hard as fuck,
hard as dick. Frank is gonna wake up with a tent in his bed.
I mean, like, what's poking my ear?
I'm never talking about my dick ever again. This is the art piece that won the award. It's I'm assuming it's of an AI drawing a human face. There's not enough room to show the whole thing, even when you go full screen. But that's the art piece that won the award.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it's. First of all, I want to shout out to the author of this article, because the writer. It's by Andrew R. Chow and Billy Perigo. It was in the Time, and the article is called "The AI Arms Race is Changing Everything," and I think it's very interesting. I think that was a really cool conversation we just had. It had a lot of shit in there, man. I thought it makes up for my hard dig, and and yeah, man, it makes I'm not standing up.
Super hard.
I'm about to burst through this table, bro, and yeah, and I think that you put it perfectly with saying how this upcoming time period is gonna be very malleable, and everything's and if it goes the right way, hopefully it can get to that point. The last thing I'll say is that, given the thought I gave earlier with, artists being able to do what they want, everybody being able to do what they want, I think art will be more valuable in the future than it is now. I think so. I really think so, because right now I think with like social media and stuff, anybody can distribute their art to their own people they know. And for me, with anything, especially with this podcast and stuff, a lot of the people that we know, that listen, I really cherish you, like every single one of you, like for sure. Like that's a real true thing. But realistically, like with anything, whether I'm selling like wallets or like a calendar or like this, I rather people, I mean, the calendar thing I did for charity, so it was cool people did it, but I rather sell to people that don't know me. If I make a movie or I write a book or like do the podcast, I want strangers to listen, because strangers are gonna give you that real feedback. Like, this shit sucks, so this shit is good. And if we can get like 13 strangers to like listen to the show and hit us up and be like, hey, we'd like the show, it's really. So I think with that in the future, I think today with social media, everybody's able to distribute to the people that are most like them. But of course, there are the outliers, and like with photography to Instagram, that's basically the same thing now with art to AI. But people are still making a success out of it. So artists basically, do better.
Keep doing what you're doing,
bitches.
Work hard, motherfuckers.
Except you, Arthur.
Except you, Alvin.
Bitch ass motherfuckers. But yeah, bro, that was the 3 top topics, and damn, bro, I mean, that was a real good conversation, man. I'm not gonna lie,
it was all right.
Yeah, it was whatever.
It was okay. You're kind of hyping it up.
Nah, that was good.
Let's talk more about your dick.
Yeah, so like, were you more hard today or more hard yesterday?
Honestly, both equivalent.
Okay.
You circumcised?